U.S. President Donald Trump was busy on Twitter this weekend, taking aim at everything from the media to immigration critics. Here's just one sample. The Democrats should get together with their Republican counterparts and work something out on border security and safety. Don't wait until after the election because you are going to lose. So to take a look at the weekend's Twitter points, we are joined now by the Globe and Mail's Adrian Morrow. Adrian, good morning to you.
Morning.
So lots of language happening this weekend. President Trump saying the Dems are forcing, these policies of immigration, separation and zero tolerance. And it's actually their fault that all of this is happening. Who's really behind the policy?
The Trump administration. I mean, Trump's lying because this is all being done because of a Democratic law. I mean, the fact is basically the Trump administration decided to do was rather than treating people crossing the border through the sort of regular immigration process, they decided to charge people criminally. And when that happens, when they detain illegal immigrants criminally, basically they end up separating them from their children. And so that's sort of why this this whole kind of situation is now happening on the southern border, is because they basically decided to kind of bring the hammer down on people who are crossing illegally and separate their children from them and hold them in these detention centers.
All right, Trump also tweeted out about the North Korea summit, saying this: over here in our country, some people would rather see this historic deal fail than give Trump a win. So you're over there in the U.S. Is that what critics are really saying? Is this true?
I think it's more nuanced than that. I mean, I think just the consensus here on the ground in Washington is that it's arguably better that Trump and Kim are meeting and that there's a negotiation going on over the nuclear program than the alternative, which is, Trump threatening nuclear war and flaming North Korea on Twitter. But what people have basically said since the summit happened is that Trump didn't get all that much out of it, that he sort of got a kind of vague, promise from North Korea to denuclearize, while at the same time sort of giving North Korea what it wanted, which is, I think, the legitimacy of having the president of the United States meet with the North Korean leader, but that there sort of wasn't the level of detail that you would need to actually know for certain that North Korea was actually going to denuclearize. I mean, there's no sort of timetable or verification or kind of a sense of how that's going to happen. So that's sort of the view that, having talks is a good thing, but it's not really clear that Trump got that much out of it, other than kind of a fairly high level promise with no detail.
Just before we get to the Russia investigation, what stands out to me about those last two tweets, and about this one in particular, which was part of the string from the weekend, was my supporters are the smartest, strongest, most hardworking, and most loyal that we have seen in our country's history. It's a beautiful thing to watch as we win elections and gather support from across the country. Using phrases like witch hunt, talking about people not wanting to give him credit for this deal in North Korea, and then talking directly to his supporters seems to be a really strong message of not unity, but separation.
Yeah, I think Trump has always been able to win by dividing people, and by basically saying it's us versus them, and I'm sort of under siege. And to a certain extent, his message is always that America is under siege. He claims that trading partners are ripping them off, that immigrants are coming in illegally, and that it's sort of he's the only one who can kind of batten down the hatches and fight back the world. So in a sense, this is very sort of classic Trumpian language to kind of tell his base, it's us against everybody, and I'm the only one who can kind of defend America from all these things that are happening.
All right, one of the things that is happening is the ongoing Russia investigation. Trump tweeting about that on the weekend, saying, I see there was no Russian collusion, so now they're looking for obstruction on the no Russian collusion. So, Adrian, what would happen if Mueller were to find that the president obstructed justice?
Basically, it seems unlikely at this point that the Mueller would actually try to lay charges against the president. I mean, he probably technically could, but he'd raise a bunch of constitutional issues, and it could be sort of politically difficult. So more than likely what would happen is if Mueller did find that there was obstruction of justice, he'd say so in a report to the Department of Justice and potentially to Congress, and sort of leave that process to play out. And then it would sort of be up to Congress to essentially decide, whether they felt that that there was enough evidence there to proceed with impeachment charges, or impeachment proceedings rather, because the Constitution gives Congress very wide latitude to kind of determine what is impeachable and what isn't. And so it's really more of a political question at that point than a legal one. So you sort of, the two factors would basically be, whether the Republicans maintain control of Congress after the midterm elections in November. And if they didn't maintain control of Congress, it would be a question of whether the Democrats actually want to pursue impeachment, if they think that that's sort of a good political move for them, or if they think that it's better to sort of fight the president on policy matters and sort of, let him continue in office, I guess, until 2020. So really be a political process rather than a legal one.
Globe and Mail's Adrian Morrow, good to talk to you this morning, breaking it all down for us, the events on Twitter from Washington this morning. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.